Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of intense racing action in the middle of the pack racing league. Fall Into PCUP Championship for 2025 has brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform, available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another round of absolutely brilliant racing. And in round number 2 of 8 in the championship, we've made our way all the way from Montreal to Portugal. It doesn't quite rhyme, but one thing that definitely is in time is an absolutely brilliant circuit for some incredible racing today. And where are we? Well, we are specifically at the Autodromo International do Algarve, or the Portimão Circuit as it's known in short. A circuit located within the limits of the city and which is after it's named. It is a circuit that is young at heart, having only been born in 2008, but it has an absolutely old school vibe to it. The best part of 15 corners over its extremities, but throughout an absolutely incredible weaving of elevation changes into each and every inch of the tarmac, and with its corners being a mixture of hairpins, sweepers, and also some rather low speed chicanes. It's going to feel as though it is a circuit from a very different decade indeed, and harking all the way back to the likes of, say, the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, or indeed the Silverstone circuit. If you were to marry the two together, you could say that you practically have the Portimão circuit, and that's why whilst this circuit may be new on the block compared to many on the European continent at least, it is a circuit that with its old school feel definitely feels as though it is a much older circuit than it is in reality. And that's perfect, because as we get ready to go racing here today, well, we're going to bring you all the racing action from the second round of the championship as if it were live in this post-round broadcast. What does that mean for the uninitiated? Well, the broadcast itself is live right now as we talk to you, and good evening to you all, but the racing you're seeing is not live. The racing actually occurred as of last week, and the racing was all the way back on Wednesday the 8th of October 2025, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live this Tuesday the 14th of October. We couldn't quite sit with our regular Saturday slot due to broadcasting conflict schedule commitments, but however we are here now, and this sets us up very nicely only 24 hours before we go racing once again for round number 3 in a day's time. But here we're taking a look back at all the racing action that teases up to our third round of the championship. And where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this broadcast from Circuit Side. You're tuning in right now via one or two media platforms for your viewing pleasure. You can be tuning in via YouTube at youtube.com and search for TX11TX, alternative Paul Walsh, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube. And we also do have, of course, the broadcast available on Twitch, if that's your preference, at twitch.tv/TX11, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. But regardless of what media channel you're tuning on from, don't be shy, feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing and what you're looking forward to today as we continue to turn another page in this championship. And in terms of our schedule for today, times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinate Time +1, UTC +1, and as we can see, we'll be getting underway with our 10-minute qualifying session at 9:10 this evening, after which we'll be going straight to the grid for the second of our 35-minute sprint races. And goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race we had at Montreal. And indeed, as we make our way into this round, it is only appropriate that we set the scene for what is going to be perhaps the continuation of an incredible season opener. Because, as we can see, we are making our way through the MPRL Cup. We began in the Montreal Street Circuit, also known as well as the circuit Jules Villeneuve, on the 1st of October. Now we made our way to Portugal for our second sprint race. Indeed, we've only got 2 visits to the European continent for this season, which is a little bit against the regular grain, but to be fair, it is not about the number, it's about the quality of the circuits that we picked, and we picked some absolutely top-notch circuit on the European continent. And the Portuguese circuit of Portimão plays host for this round, after which we make our way back to the North American continent for a double American header of Road Atlanta for our third of our sprint race in the MPRL Cup, and then we head to Long Beach, the street circuit in downtown Long Beach in the US state of California, for our first of our 2 feature races on the 22nd of October. That will conclude the MPRL Cup, and then of course we'll have the mid-season break before we make our way back to the racing with round number 5 on the 5th of November, with the middle of the Pack Cup, which will see us make our way from Aragon to Okayama and Motegi in a Japanese double header, and then we bring the curtain down in the Oceania region at Phillip Island in Australia for our second feature race all the way on the 26th of November. But as we make our way into this round specifically, what happened last time out? Well, to find that out, we need to head to the standings. And after one round, we start with the Pro Championship standings, and then we can see it is Matt Best who leads by 3 points over Jason Landry and James Logston. But that is underselling the incredible three-way battle for victory between the 3 drivers, whereby Matt Best in the end, he was not the fastest of all 3 of them. What he was able to do, however, was prove to be the most consistent out of the trio, and in the end he was able to bring home that win, where we did see a battling between all three drivers, with Best and Logston having a side-by-side battle for the entirety of almost 2 laps around the circuit. Charles Villeneuve, indeed, I've never seen it that close between 2 drivers, but they were able to pull it off, and it was only in a rub and a bump into the World Champions that really separated them, and for Jason Andre, it was mistakes on the braking and also a spin that cost him the win. But all three were so closely matched together, and it did tease us up very nicely. And it's not to be unfair to the rest of the field. Indeed, we did have David Adeyemi, Tom Bryce, Daniel McConnell, Justin Braggon, and Jaden Callaway all there. But the top 3 really stole the show, and then everybody else there, it was the battle for 4th place, which David Adeyemi was the one who was able to take it away. But then coming into the AM class, conversely, well, here we can see Shahi Zahair. He had a runaway run of form in Montreal with a faultless drive to victory ahead of Blake Phillips. However, only a point ahead, given the fact the 2 drivers there finished not too far separated in terms of positions, and points, of course, are attributed based on overall finishing position, with bonus points for those who finished on the top step of the podium in the AM class, all the way through to the 3rd step of the podium, where it's 3 for 1st, 2 for 2nd, and 1 for 3rd. However, with the way the racing went between these drivers, you can imagine that right now Shahi Zahair has set himself up as the favourite, and he'll be hoping for plenty more of the same to his rivals to try and upset the apple cart, with Jermaine Warren in 4th ahead of Billman DaCosta and Nick Bader round off the standings, and we're looking forward to seeing whether any of them can take a candle to the dominance that Zahair put together in the first round. But as we come from our standings then into our circuit for today, it is of course the Algarve International Circuit. It's Grand Prix layout, located in the city of Portimão in the Faro district of the Algarve region of Portugal. A big thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but also the track maps that come with it. And this track map, well, a 2-dimensional image does not do this circuit justice, with the fact it does have that grand total of 15 corners, but more importantly, the elevation changes that are interspersed into each and every run of the tarmac. It really is one of those circuits whereby you've got to imagine it is absolutely non-stop in terms of how it hammers out what is those elevation changes for our drivers. It feels as though it's the ultimate European roller coaster. For as they roar the way down the start for this straight, and down in 2 senses, down towards turn number 1, both on the flat, but also a major depression in the ground, they'll charge their way down in towards turn number 1 and through the fast triple head right-hander of turns 1, 2 and 3, which concludes with the Lagos hairpin at turn number 3. Then it'll be the run back over the hill at turn number 4 before they go downhill into the breakings over the turn 5 hairpin, after which it's the wonderful hilly terrain run of turns 6, 7 and 8 all the way through Samson Corner, and as they then make the way out towards Portimão Bend at turns 10 and 11, that's all about braking at turn 10 to set up turn number 11 before they go downhill through turn number 12, only to go uphill into the hairpin chicane of turn 13 and 14, and now to Sagres del Fall, and as they go off camber through there, it'll then be the fast right-hander of Gout that completes the lap and sees them do it all over again or finally find that checker flag. But before we do go racing, a quick reminder of the rules. Setup-wise, drivers shall run a fixed setup as provided by the middle of the pack Racing League. Fuel loads are restricted to 40%. A closed qualifying format shall be used lasting 10 minutes. You'll see that very shortly. And in terms of sprint races, well, the race shall start via a standing start, as is the tradition of Porsche Cup racing, with each driver having 1 fast repair available, and should they pick up 15 or more instant points, they shall receive a drive-through penalty. That's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We're all here for the racing, so let's make our way back to circuit side then. And as we do, who's the fastest in this final warm-up session in practice? Well, it's none other than Matt Best right now, who is looking to be out there by 2.5 tenths over Jaden Callaway, and Shahi Zahair, the fastest AM driver, once again a whole second off a best first time. However, Zahair right now a comfortable 1.1 seconds clear of the rest of his contemporaries, with Glenn Bratton bringing up that second place ahead of Jermaine Warren. Now we do have a newcomer on the grid today, and that is Jaden Callaway, who you'll see in the 37 as he goes racing. We're looking forward to seeing what he can do. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, there's Julian Jones there, who's parked up behind the barrier. That's one place to park, I can tell you. We're going to step away for a brief moment, because coming up is qualifying. And without further ado, we make our way then into qualifying. 10 minutes, and it's go, go, go for all drivers. They need to pump in the laps as quick as they can, and they want to get the job done, because the thing with a close qualifying session, as many were to find out, of course, at Montreal last time out, you've only got a finite number of laps, and on top of that as well, you've only got a finite amount of time. If you are on a valid lap, when the clock strikes 10 minutes, that's it. You don't get any more time in qualifying, and therefore you've got to get things done as quickly as you possibly can. But the thing with these Porsche Porsche Cup cars is it takes time to get the tyres up to temperature, and once you've got the tyres up to temperature, you then need to try and get the car fully established with regards to how much grip there is and also the low fuel in the car, because these Porsche 992s have a quirky feature. And indeed, Porsche racing machinery has this feature like no other, which is the fuel tank. It's in the front of the car, and that means as the car runs low on fuel, it gets lighter on the front end and the aero balance shifts dramatically, whereas most racing cars have the fuel tank towards the rear, and therefore the aero balance does not shift as dramatically. In these Porsche Cup cars, indeed Porsche GT3 machines, of which they are an extension of the Cup car, it is definitely one of those situations whereby that fuel tank, as it gets lighter, the front end becomes more twitchy, and the rear end suddenly starts to feel a lot heavier than the front end. And well, it should naturally, of course, because these machines are rear engine, rear wheel drive, as is the standard doctrine for the Porsche 992, indeed Porsche racing machines, with the only exception in modern racing being the Porsche 911 RSR GTE, where to comply with the regulations for GTE based on the FIA World Endurance Championship spec, the engine was located in a mid position behind the driver, mid-engine rear wheel drive, rather than rear-engine rear wheel drive, where the engine is over the rear axle. But besides the technical specifications, Shahi Zahir right now will be paying no mind to that, although he would do well to pay mind to how that weight transfer goes through the corners, as we do see the ITD West driver making his way down through turn number 14, and looking quite smooth there. Could we expect him to run away with this one again, or will somebody be able to force him to go the distance here today? Well, of course, qualified is just one part of the story, and many a driver will know that, including Mark Senegal as he goes on to his first flying lap, and it's actually over the race distance. That is the other part of the story, where you can imagine these drivers right now will be getting their heads down and doing everything they can in order to get things absolutely right. But Senegal makes his way then out to turn number 3, and as he heads on through, the lovely Sunday GT Turtles livery machine there, looking good as it always does, to be fair. And I must admit, we do love to see these cars. He roars his way onwards, and well, what's he going to be able to achieve here? That's going to be the question. We'll look to Julian Jones, meanwhile, the number 33 driver here. And well, Jones right now, his car also looking nice and steadfast as he comes on through the corners. And well, Jones being a driver who definitely, in fact, I do apologise because I did say that it was Jaden Callaway who was on the grid today. No, in fact, this is Julian Jones's debut round, not Jaden Callaway's, and well, the number 33 driver here in the, what is the Pro class. You can tell by the blue banner over the car, and also what is on the wing mirrors, and also the fact you can see it in the timing towel there. Well, he's not new to Middle Pack Racing League, but he is new to this Porsche Cup Series, and can he make a big impression? Because we do know that Jones does have a lot of pace at his fingertips. We've seen that in previous series run by the MPRL. And also he's quite quick in a Super Formula machine as well, as I have been informed, as he heads uphill and in towards turns 10 and 11. Well, right now using all the circuit width there to open up the run through 10 in towards 11. That's exactly how you do it. Jones does seem to be quite comfortably settled in here into what is the Portimão Circuit, and that is a sign of someone who's been doing their homework. Jason Landry, meanwhile, well, we can see him here, making his way down in towards turns 7 and 8, the very tricky braking zone here of turn 8, where essentially you're braking for an uphill right-hander where the car will feel as though it naturally wants to go straight on, but you want to get it turned, and you have to try and bury the car as you go from off-camber to on-camber very quickly through that corner. The rear will lift up as well, and getting on the throttle too soon can spell your doom. You'll very quickly go around and find yourself rolling onto the grass, and we're potentially rolling your way back downhill. Landry right now still on his first flying lap, as many a valid lap is coming on in. Jaden Callaway the fastest of everybody after one turn of the circuit, a 47.283, but only faster than Shahi Zahir by 300ths there. And of course, this qualifying session, with the fact that it is closed qualifying rather than our typical open qualifying format, it does change the dynamic. Many of you may remember when we've had open qualifying, we've normally had the slower of our driver classes, so the AMs, or the AMs and the Pro-Ams, go out first, and the Pros have been in the final half of the qualifying session. And it means that really the AMs and the Pro-Ams, or just the AMs, they've laid down the rubber, they built up the track temperature, and then suddenly the Pros could go out there and put in some absolute monster times. Here, because it's a closed qualifying session, everybody takes an isolated instance of the circuit, and everybody gets an opportunity to work with the same conditions, and that's why we can expect the qualifying order to be shuffled quite considerably, because there is no delta per se between how the track feels for our drivers. It's already based on how our drivers' perceptions of the track are, and subsequently what they can do with the car, because all cars are equal with the fixed setups, and therefore it comes down to driver ability. Shahi Zahir right now, in terms of lap times, he's not quite on the pace of Jaden Callaway, who's really stretching right now. In fact, Callaway is going faster than everybody again here. Can Callaway put himself on an improved pole lap? Yes, he can by a whole second, a 46.197. Zahair heads towards the timing line, his ITD West teammate. And what does Zahair do? Because he's currently the fastest AM driver. He crossed the line. Senegal improves to 48.882. Zahair only improves by what is a half a tenth there to a 47.201. Matt Best, meanwhile, he strikes strong here and he moves up into second place, the 46.454. They're running out of laps, but Best definitely delivered a good one there at the Texas Speed Sim Racing Privateer machine. And well, if you couldn't tell the car was from the state of Texas, you just need to look at the Lone Star right in the dead centre of the front bonnets there. And indeed, a lovely livery on the car, and right now representing the team very proudly indeed does Best. And well, right now he wants to try and maintain that championship lead as best he possibly can, and if he can't dazzle them with speed, he'll dazzle them with a livery, and I do love that spirit. But as he comes down, who's perhaps struggling a little bit out there? Well, at the moment, Jason Landry, he's only in fourth place, but he is coming to the end of another flying lap. He is on to his last qualifying lap, I do believe now. That's 47.591, but that puts him 1.4 seconds off the overall pole time. Now, we do have to keep in mind that these laps, they will be checked whether they're valid or not as we transition from qualifying into the race grid. So therefore, we may have some surprises. Some drivers may suddenly drop down the order unexpectedly, but right now at least, it does seem as though, well, Jason Landry may be struggling a little bit here and maybe relegated to being amongst the likes of Julian Jones and also Blake Phillips and Daniel McConnell, because it is quite close in that mid-pack for the second and third rows of the grid. And Landry right now will be breathing a sigh of relief of where he is. Well, one driver right now who is trying to push hard, but he pushed a bit too hard as he was purple in sector 1. Matt Best gets the power down coming out of turn number 13. The car goes spinning around, and in the end for Matt Best, what was an attempt to try and steal away pole position from Jaden Callaway. He's been the fastest of everybody in sector 1, and his middle sector was practically on top of Callaway's Best. Well, for Best, it all went wrong right at the end there, but that goes to show you how much he wants to try and improve and get close. Shahi Zahair, the AM pole sitter, holds on to third on the 47.153, so finds an extra half a tenth once again. Indeed, he's having little nibbles out of his time there. As Julian Jones crosses that timeline, he improves for a lovely lap, a 47.349. Good work from Jones there to put himself into full place ahead of Landry. Now it'll be for other drivers to strike back. Here comes McConnell, the Texas Speed Sim Racing driver, and as he does so, well, we briefly lose our time tower for a brief moment, but then it comes back to life, and I do believe, well, Daniel McConnell in the end does improve to 47.744, so good improvement from him there. And well, can anyone else improve at this time? We've got quite a few drivers in the pit lane at the moment. McConnell's on a cool-down lap now. He's got no more laps available to him. Billman DaCosta will be the last of our drivers with a valid time so far. He's down in 12th place. He's on his final flying lap for Bear Pope 0. And we do have the absence of James Logston for this round, so unfortunately we don't have our terrific trio right at the front from Montreal from the Pro class. But then again, you can imagine that we may see some new names take to the top, particularly with Callaway being up there. And I think if Logston is tuning in right now, he's going to be thinking to himself, why can't I be there to get in amongst them all? As DaCosta heads across that timeline, does he find a bit more time? He does find a second, but he stays 12th there on a 51.345, so he's got a bit of work to do in the race. Jermaine Warren, he's been late to the party here, but the Amdrive crossed the line. That's 49.374. That's his first flying lap. His next one, if he carries on the pace, well, theoretically, should be at least a couple of tenths faster, if not half a second at least faster. That is naturally the rate of progression, typically, as the fuel comes out the car and also the tyres come alive, but not like that, as Warren gets it very wrong coming out to turn number 1 in towards 2. And for Jermaine Warren, that is going to be a qualifying session that's effectively aborted, as well, everybody else has completed their qualifying, so nobody else is going anywhere. And at this point, well, Jason Landry, like many, will be just sat in the car, if not in the pits, waiting for this qualifying session to officially end. But surprise, surprise, Jason Landry is nowhere near the very top. As if these laps stand, it's Jaden Callaway who's stolen pole position away from everybody. That is bank robbery in daylight, and Matt Best has had to settle for second, a quarter of a second behind him. With your AM pole sitter, there's not as much of a surprise there. Shahi Zahair dominating the AM qualifying proceedings by 6 tenths over Blake Phillips, who starts in 7th behind the third place starter. But without further ado, let's make our way to the grid then, ladies and gents, for our second round of the season. So as they all make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for round number 2 of the Middle of the Pack Racing League Fall Into PCUP Championship for 2025. It is pole position that goes the way as confirmed to Jaden Calloway, in the end by a quarter of a second ahead of Matt Best. In the battle of the privateers at the very front of the field, we will then see just behind it is going to be Shahi Zahair, who starts in 3rd place with the ITC West Senior Vice President's driver, the AM pole sitter, putting an absolutely brilliant effort once again. From the Sri Lankan driver, it will then be the American of Julian Jones, who starts in 4th place, ahead of Jason Landry, who begins this one in 5th, and then it will be Daniel McConnell 6th for the grid there, only what was a 10th and a half behind. Blake Phillips, the second of the YAM drivers, starts in 7th for the Pit Club Sim Racing, ahead of Tom Bryce, the ITC West Interns Pro Esports Division driver, not having the strongest qualified performance, and then we will have Mark Senegal for Sunday GT Turtles and Nick Bader rounded off your top 10, and outside the top 10 it'll be Glenn Bratton, the privateer, ahead of fellow privateer Jermaine Warren, who starts 12th, and Bill DaCosta will start 13th. Last but not least on this grid, but to be fair, he might be able to make progress as the race goes on. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to go racing. Here come the lights. And it's lights out and away we go here for our drivers. 35 minutes begins to tick away, and Jaden Calloway gets a brilliant start as they roll the way down towards turn number 1. Shahi's ahead, jumps ahead of Matt Best immediately, trying to go around the outside, but Best says no you don't, and as a result they fight hard as they make their way through the opening couple of corners. Best and Zahair still side by side, but Best in the end does get ahead as they head into the braking zone, and we'll go through 2 and in towards 3 and 4 now. It's still going to be a bit of a scramble. In fact there, that is going to be Jason Landry trying to poke his nose in where many would argue it doesn't belong, but Landry's got other ideas here and right now tries to move a bit forward, so he holds on to 5th as he chases after Julian Jones, and Blake Phillips meanwhile he's stuck ahead of Daniel McConnell in the interim period. Onto the brakes, and here comes Phillips on the inside. Landry runs a bit deep, but the outside of turn number 5 is where you do want to be. You get a better exit, you get more speed into turn number 6, and it's the driver on the inside who has to try and frustrate you as you come through the curve of 6 in towards 7, but Phillips immediately backs off there. But this is a very strong and aggressive start from Phillips. He actually looks quite comfortable in that 2.25 nice and early on, and that is giving him a lot of pace here as he makes his way towards the end of this first lap. However, it is going to be a long race, 35 minutes. It may not sound that long, but these drives, it definitely will feel a lot longer than normal. And as they all tiptoe their way through 10 and 11, Nick Bader just in front of Mark Senegal. They got ahead right at the race start. We're going to replay that when we can. Senegal losing 1 place overall, and the same for Jermaine Warren versus Glenn Bratton. Bratton is down into 12th place, in fact falling back into the clutches of Bilman DaCosta. But back towards the front of the field, going towards the end of the first lap then as they roll their way up towards Galp Corner. Right now, Jason Landry definitely looking to be in authority of this 5th place, but wants to try and move forward with Blake Phillips and Daniel McConnell playing the game of chase, heading over the rise they come. But look at that, coming down the start for the straight. That's Matt Best in 2nd place, weaving, trying to get Shahi's hair off the back of him. Jaden Calloway right now is gradually opened up at a bit of a lead as they head onto this 2nd lap. And it does definitely look as though, right now for Jaden Calloway, this is becoming a bit of a saunter off into the distance if he can make this happen. Matt Best behind him, and Shahi's hair, well, they are going to be fighting hard as the hair is all over the back of the 2nd place man. Now out to the left-hand of turn number 4 they go, being in that dirty S so close, that presents a bit of a challenge for Zahair, which is once he gets this close, he now does have a big wall of air that he's got to try and punch his way through. But the AM leader is definitely looking to be the fastest of everybody in the AM class by considerable margin as he comes out of the hairpin and over towards 6 and 7. He fancies his chances in a runner-up spot here today. But of course, remember, AM drives and pro drives, they're actively encouraged to fight each other because you score the majority of your points based on where you finish overall. As Best goes a little bit deep there at turn number 8 and well brings it together, or salvages it I should really say. But that is definitely legitimate salvage from him for the time being. Zahair right now, we look at her thinking, if I could just put him under a bit more pressure, if I could be a little bit more annoying, I'm going to get him to make an even bigger mistake here. But Zahair almost makes a mistake. Well, a lot of oversteer there coming out turn number 11, so I think he's driving on the limit in order to put Matt Best on the limit, and this might be a game of who makes the first mistake. And when I say the first mistake, the first major one out of the 2 of them this early on. But we will see as our top 3 definitely now start to saunter. But as we see Julian Jones, he comes on down through turn number 14 in towards 15. And Jones right now, well, what can he do at this moment? He's doing very well to hold on to this 4th place, 3rd in pro class. But I don't think he's got anything up his sleeve at the moment to close down the top 3 as they charge onto another lap. So So it's Callaway, Best, Zuhair, your top three outside the picture. Then we're looking at Julian Jones ahead of Landry, but hold up, as that was Zuhair taking a little look up the inside of Best, just faking a look in towards turn number one. You've got to be fully alongside, as that's not how to go alongside. They're going through turn one. Blake Phillips gives you a demonstration of what happens when you go too deep at one. You just go straight on into the runoff area there. And oh no, that's Daniel McConnell. Locks up on the braking as he tries to rotate the car. And the rear comes round, the front brakes lock up. And in the end for Daniel McConnell, it's very quick reflexes, which see him have to get the car to a stop before it goes spinning all the way round. So a brilliant bit of a catch there for Daniel McConnell, but does lose multiple places in the process. Mark Senegal, meanwhile, he's had a bit of a nightmare lap number 2. We're going to get a replay of that shortly as he goes around the outside of Bill da Costa. He moves back into 12th place, Siegfried Ab. But for Mark Senegal, it has definitely been an early stage of the race where things have not clicked together. And in fact, ladies and gentlemen, let's get you a replay of what exactly has happened to Mark Senegal. And here we go. But before that, of course, we do take a look at the race start. So this was the race start, and as everybody looked to get away, we do get a slightly different camera angle, and Mark Senegal is going to be the focus of our attention here, as he did have a bit of a slow start. In fact, almost got a bit of a preemptive start. He rolled, but not enough to trigger the full start penalty line there, so he bogged down in the second phase of the launch as they made the way in towards turn number 1, because otherwise he would have had a stop-and-go penalty for the full start. Into turns 1 and 2 he went, and as he did try to poke his way around the outside of Nick Bader, but naturally lost that place because of his hesitance or going too soon and then had to back the car off. So that's how it all started for Mark Senegal, and then on lap number 2, well, it all went a bit further wrong, and this is what exactly went wrong for him. In towards turn number 5 he went to the downhill braking zone. As he came onto the brakes, had Jermaine Warren for close company behind. Senegal went deep, and the rear of the car came round before he could get the front to point. And well, that happens plenty of times in these Porsche Cup cars, and he had to wait for the whole field to come past him. And we also had this only moments ago on lap number 3 for Daniel McConnell, of which we did catch this. This was him giving chase. Chasing after there, a wayward car in the form of Blake Phillips. Got a bit eager on the brakes, but the rear of the car came round before the front could turn in. And I think that might have been a bit of an aggressive downshift there, causing the rear wheels to spin up, and they just let go. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to your live racing. And as we do come back to your live racing, plenty more to unfold, of course. And we come back to your leader in particular. And well, he looks to be in absolute control right now. It does Jaden Callaway, as time continues to gradually tick away here at the Portimão Circuit. But Callaway, for all his pace, in fact, his previous best lap has now been shattered by Matt Best. So Callaway may have been fast initially, but Best seems to be acclimatised a little bit more now, and we did see Best have that little wobble coming out of Portimão corner on lap number 2, given how hard he was pushing, but perhaps he's now got the car fully dialed in. This may not be as straightforward a race as we expect. Shahi Zahir is still trying to keep Best honest, however, but that is worth noting. So it's going to be a little bit of a crisscross here between the drivers, and you can understand if right now Best is probably of the mindset, which is he needs to get a move on as quickly as he can, because if he doesn't, then he is going to be under absolutely intense pressure to try and break away when he can, and that's not easy because the hair will be there waiting for Best to make even the smallest of mistakes and acts as rear gunner for Callaway. And I can imagine that the ITT West drivers will be on the radio to each other right now in terms of what's playing out and how they work this out together. And Jones and Landry, well, they make the way through turn number 1, and Landry close. Is he going to look for a move here potentially as we jump on board with the Canadian privateer? The answer is no, not quite now, but you can understand he's definitely thinking that Jones is right for the pickings here as he makes his way out to turn number 4, because he's been getting close. He's been on that rear bumper, he's been watching for some time, and well, Landry definitely looking for the small mistakes in the ITT West car, and those small mistakes are where all the prizes are made as they roll the way up the hill. And the thing with these Porsche Cup cars, the tyres, they can last the best part of a 35-minute race, and they'll be expected to. We won't expect any tyre changes here today, but in terms of the natural extended life of the tyre, it's only 20 minutes if you push it at maximum attack. So therefore, to get a tyre to last over 35 minutes, you do need to do a bit of tyre protection and saving, which we did see at Montreal played a big factor, and it's why Best was able to stay with the top 2 as they fought and made mistakes. Best hadn't used his tyres as much, and in the end was able to get right in the thick of it. And well, it did definitely get quite grisly for the win overall only a week ago. But But right now, Jason Landry thinking about a late dive there on Jones. I think he saw the door was slightly open and thought, well, I've got a lot more on the brakes. I can trail brake up his inside, and then realised that Jones was going to come across at the last moment, not because of Landry looking for the dive, but to make the corner. And what they made contract, Landry would have been referring to himself to the stewards, if not Jones telling him to get into the stewards. And understandably there, they would have thrown the book at Landry. And I can tell you one thing, he prides himself on absolutely clean and fair racing. He's one of the fairest racers out there, and that's why he's not going to make a move unless he's 99.9% sure he can get alongside and make something happen. But in top gear now, the rev limiter absolutely screaming as he makes his way in towards the opening corner. And right now for Jason Landry, it's close, but not quite close enough as he heads on to lap number 6. Now, as they continue to fight, a bit further back, Daniel McConnell is catching up to Tom Bryce. So McConnell is bringing himself back up the order after that spin at turn number 3 a couple of laps ago. He's now in the back of 5th place, pro driver Bryce. This is for 7th overall. All drives still in this one so far, which is great to see after the best part of a start in 10 minutes. We've still got a long way to go over the distance. So therefore, understandably at this point, I think some drivers will be a little bit hesitant to push too hard. But for Daniel McConnell, he wants to eagerly try and get this done. As looking around the outside on the hairpin for the cut back up the hill, that is going to be Daniel McConnell. But we ride aboard, looking back from Tom Bryce. And we can note here that right now the number 72 driver is doing everything right to defend. He is having to drive off racing line to keep himself in position. And well, you may be sat there saying right now, well, that's obvious. That's called defensive driving. But the point is, he's shown that he doesn't have the pace to keep McConnell behind. So that's why he's having to drive so offline at certain corners to force McConnell to have to look a long way round. Portimão, you'll notice a very wide circuit here, so it does offer plenty of overtaking lines and opportunities, but there are certain points on the circuit, such as at Portimão Bend, where, unless you're fully alongside into the initial braking phase, there's no real way to attack unless your rival makes a mistake. There is only one natural racing line through, and then the attacking lines, it all comes down to that corner entry and being too wide on the braking point, if you will. But Bryce right now doing everything right to keep McConnell behind. Warren is catching up. He's on the back of this almost now as the third place AM driver. So that gives you an indication of how hard Bryce is working here to keep McConnell behind. But the problem is, as they build up the speed, well, McConnell's now going to have the best possible run as Bryce is having to go all the way to the pit wall here in order to get set to defend into turn 1. McConnell's got the overspeed or thereabouts. They're too wide. However, Bryce is a nose ahead into the braking zone. McConnell goes to the switchback. Bryce outbrakes himself, and Tom Bryce goes on. He loses 1, then he loses 2 because Jermaine Warren sneaks on through as well. And therefore, now the third place AM driver moves up another position, and some more points could be coming his way. So brilliant bit of opportunities there for Jermaine Warren. Tom Bryce, when you got to feel for him, he nailed everything right, apart from the fact he just broke, I think, where he would normally break if he was on the natural racing line for turn 1, or he didn't break early enough there. Perhaps he needed another 5 metres just to get the car stopped. It would have been right on the limit, but it would have put a lot of pressure. As meanwhile, well, Jermaine Warren puts a lot of pressure on himself and ends up going sideways there coming out of turn 5, stops it from spinning. A small look up on the front left. Nick Bader sneaks on through, and Bader right now is gradually crusading his way out the order in the AM class. He's up into 3rd. Having started in 4th place, inching onwards, and well, looking to be on a charge now. And can he get a little bit closer to Phillips or even Zuhair? Well, pace-wise, Nick Bader, you would argue, is on equivalent pace to Jermaine Warren, really. So I think this could be a little bit of a tight fight for 3rd in the AM class and 9th overall, depending on whether Warren has scuppered his tyres with that slight drift. But we will see, because of course the tyres of these Porsche Cup cars, they can be brought back to some degree of life, as Bader goes too deep at turn number 13, stops the car just in time, and Jermaine Warren takes the place back immediately. So that fight is over before it's really built up again. But then again, that's the way it goes, and it wouldn't be a surprise if we see even more mistakes between one of these drivers before all is said and done. But with that, we had a mistake from Nick Bader on lap number 5 as well. We're going to take a look back at that quickly. And here is said replay, ladies and gentlemen, and how Nick Bader got it wrong before he then got it right. So this was Nick Bader making his way. In fact, the same location 2 laps before where it went wrong. What did he do wrong this time? Well, he got the power down a bit too soon and the rear started to let go, but managed to control it before it went to the grass. And that is how he managed to stop it from going all downhill and having to retake the entire corner sequence again. So Nick Bader getting away with that one. In a different story, he may not have, but brilliant car control there from the number 276 driver. And that is how you restore the car after a big mistake. Well, let's go back to your live racing. So as we come back, Bader pushing on. Indeed, many drivers trying to push on and go a little bit deeper into the distance here. We are the best part of almost 15 minutes now into this, and our leader of Jaden Callaway, he is continuing to rapidly confound the rest of the field, because we were wondering whether Best was getting close enough to get involved. And if anything, it does seem as though Best has fallen back a little bit over the last couple of laps, and with it, so has Shahi Zahair. The top three, they're nowhere near as close to each other anymore. Jason Landry, he's looking a little bit faster at this point. He seems to be getting his head into this. He has passed Julian Jones, and well, these drivers were roaring the way on for us. We do say hello to Matt Best in the YouTube chat, and well, good to see you, Matt. Hope you're doing well, good sir. And well, as he makes his way out of turn number 15, Best sets a personal best of 46.846, and Landry sets a personal best of 47.35. Although those times may not be accurate, those will be best since returning from the replay footage there. A slight glitch with what is the iRacing timings that we have available to us, because we are looking at a replay file, and we do have some slight limitations with what is the post-race broadcast format, but not too many these days due to the magic that has been worked by the likes, of course, our fellow technician Arturo Mayorga, and that's how we get the replays. Big special mention to him there for making it possible. As we do, let's see Jason Landry here trying to make something possible. Well, I think Julian Jones will be looking at him and still thinking he's within reach. All I've got to do is shadow him and make sure I don't fall out of 2 seconds. The reason why we say 2 seconds is important is because that's normally the window by which you can swing pit stops depending on fuel saving and also under fueling the car intentionally in order to gain track position. It's normally somewhere between 2 to 4 seconds, but 2 seconds is the minimum is the typical swing you see in the pits. Circuits such as Portimão. It's a very long pit lane, however it's a very easily accessible one, and it's not a difficult one to come out of either. You naturally come onto an inside line into turn 1. The only problem with that inside line is that you want as much corner width, but the pit exit line will take you practically all the way out to the turning point for the apex. So you are compromised on pit exit, and it does mean that whilst it's a straightforward pit lane, it's also one of those ones whereby if your rival's on the outside and you're coming out the pits, you are at risk of losing the position unless you force yourself to the apex and essentially say to your rival, okay, I'm here, what are you going to do? And therefore you put your race in the lap of the racing gods, or perhaps more pertinently, in the lap of your rival wanting to do the right thing. But speaking of doing the right thing, as Best just gains 4 attempts there on Callaway on that lap, brings the gap back down to 1.65 seconds there. So Best is definitely working hard. What's going to be the outcome? Because we are getting towards the halfway point. We do expect these fuel tanks to run dry at some point and mandate a fuel pit stop. Not a tyre pit stop, however. We're nowhere near using all those tyres. And well, Callaway and Best still push each other onwards as Shahi Zahair, who we say hello to in the YouTube chat. Good evening to you, good sir. Hope you're doing well. He's fallen away a little bit now, dropped down to 3rd place, and, well, he stayed in 3rd place, I should say, but he's really dropped down into a 3rd place that he's starting to craft for himself. Jason Landry is closing up, and in fact, Landry took half a second out of Zahair on that previous lap. There's not been any major visible mistakes from the ITT West 209 driver. I think right now he might be getting more into the mindset, which is, okay, I tried throwing a lot at Best in the early stages. I put him under big pressure, but I almost put myself under a bit of pressure as well. There's no point me really trying to hunt phantom lap time now and trying to bring Best even closer. I may as well just concentrate on my race. And well, I think for Shahi it's the right thing to do, because if he can make it back-to-back and wins and take this 3rd place, that's going to be a huge injection of points before we do make our way back to the United States in what will be a day's time for our drives, but for the broadcast it will be in a week's time when we will be making our way to Road Atlanta. Goodness me, if you want roller coaster rides, well, if Portimão is the European roller coaster road racing, Road Atlanta is America's own roller coaster, and I must say the American roller coaster is perhaps the ultimate roller coaster in the world for road racing, and we'll talk more about that in what will be a week's time on that broadcast, because Road Atlanta is an absolute behemoth of a circuit to get right, and in some respects I would argue, whilst it's one of the shortest circuits in the world in terms of lap time, well, for its short nature it definitely feels like it requires an absolute set of nerves that's the equivalent of taking on the Nürburgring at Nordschleife. But as Zaher and Landry continue to exchange lap times, and Landry peeling the best part of 7/10 out of him on that previous lap, and then poking his nose up the inside in towards turn number 3. They're trying to really get into Zaher's head. Well, we have got a bit of action going on further back. As we can see, Mark Senegal, he's in 5th of AM, looking up the inside of Glenn Bratton down towards turn number 1. But Senegal realising you can fake a move into turn 1, but you can't force a move into turn 1 because of the way that open apex is shaped. It's such a late apex, you have to be alongside. So Bratton right now, he's doing everything right to hold on. As Jermaine Warren chases after Tom Bryce. And they make their way down towards turn number 5. And well, for Bryce right now, it is a bit more pressure, but these two, they were like this earlier in the race before they had their own separate instance, but normality has been restored, and it is Warren who's playing the game of chase. From them then, coming back towards the front, Jaden Callaway, 1.4 seconds now is the gap to best. It continues to oscillate every so often. That's the concertina effect. And well, there is your ITC West leader. And here is your Texas Speed Sim Racing runner-up right now. Things were to finish as they currently stand. They are almost towards the end of 20 minutes. The fuel tanks are getting lighter and lighter. And well, some fuel saving may be going in here. We do know that as they make the way on out, this circuit, in terms of fuel usage, it is quite an aggressive circuit in fuel usage because you do have this long start-finish straight where you are full throttle for a sizable period of time, and also you have got other parts where you do have a lot of acceleration zones. So it does mean you're not off throttle for too long around here, and you are constantly chasing that throttle to get the lap time. Back to 3rd place, meanwhile, we'll speak of the chase. Jason Landry right there now as we ride aboard with the number 5 on the dashboard, looking around the outside then, in towards turn number 3. As Zaher goes defensive, Landry says, I see what you're trying to do. Doesn't look for it to 4. No, he doesn't. He sweeps it out very wide there at 4. Thinking he get a good run, but I think overcooks the entry slightly, and Landry as a result falls back a little bit as Zaher had a bit of power oversteer there at the apex. But you can see Landry, look at the way he's really closed up at the braking here. There is the concertina effect naturally, but the attitude, the language of how he's braking, it's almost as if he's braking in stages and sort of going, okay, I'll use a little bit of brake. Okay, I can get a bit closer, lift off, then put some more back on. Whereas the hair much more linear in his braking at this point. Landry right now, he's really got himself dialed in. A bit of oversteer there coming out of turn number 8. For Zaher, Landry just bouncing around there. Straight line's the exit. He knows that he's got his target right where he wants him. He's just got to pick the right place now to pull the trigger and go for the move. Portimão corner's not that place, but Landry nails his apex. Zaher meanwhile runs a bit wide, but gets a much better run off the corner in fact for running wide. And surely he's got to absorb that information for next time in the fact that actually his run out of Portimão corner is better the deeper he goes beyond the apex. As we do have a driver into the pit lane, it's Glenn Bratton. He's going for his fuel stop. So I won't be surprised if we see a few more coming to the pit shortly, as overtakes have dried up a little bit on circuit, but we have got these nice close-knit battles that have really built up, and we're just waiting to see how they conclude as Landry here comes out of the corner, out of Gout, turning in nice and early then lets the car roll out. Both drivers using all the runoff area there, trying to take tactical off tracks when they can. Landry now closer and closer, building up the speed into the braking zone. Bratton comes out the pit lane. That is going to be practically 3 wide under braking. Well, it looks 3 wide, but Bratton in backs off completely. And Landry, we can't find it. He's back to square one. Indeed, this is going to feel like it's deja vu from lap number 12 because he's so close. He's trying to throw everything he can at this. But Landry right now, I think he's huffing and puffing, but what has he got to blow down the house of Shahi Zaher? And well, the answer is he hasn't got enough right now. He's only there. He's missing that final 5%, as we like to say. If he can find it, then Zaher, I think, will be losing that 3rd place or a major risk of doing so. The only other thing that Landry can do right now is he can come into the pits if he feels though he needs the fuel, unless he's going to try and go to the end of the race unscathed on fuel capacity with a single pit stop. He could come into the pits, and what he could give himself potentially is clear track, which if he came in right now, he would end up all the way down towards where Glenn, well, not where Glenn Bratton is, but he would end up all the way down towards the start-finish straight in terms of the gap on circuit if we took it based on where he is on circuit at the moment. So Landry would buy himself clear track. I mean, the only worry he has in mind is he doesn't know exactly where he'll fit into the order, and therefore he doesn't want to risk it, as that's a very, very near miss there from Shahi Zaher coming through turn number 12. Car just siphoning away from him. Does seem as though the 209 driver here is starting to feel this car get very light. And also, he's being made to drive on the limit. He's being made to feel uncomfortable here, is Zuhair. And, well, we don't normally see him get phased like this, but right now he definitely seems to be sweating inside that 209. Does he come into the pits? No, he doesn't. He stays on. They all stay on here. Landry fancies his chances then as they head down the start-finish straight. They are going for it, are these two. Zuhair right now trying to hold on not just Liam victory, but an overall podium. And Landry with a massive overspeed here. He's going to try and go around the outside into turn 1. It doesn't normally work. And, well, it's going to be Zuhair who still stays in third for now as Landry tucks back in. But with the confidence that Landry has, I think it's going to be a question of when, not if he goes for another move. Tom Bryce is into the pit lane. Here he goes down pit lane. And as he does, well, he's going to drop down the order. But this will be a natural pit stop, and he can expect a lot of other drivers to make their own soon. Coming back to the Zuhair-Landry battle for third. Landry a lot closer there into turn 5, but gets it a little bit wrong coming into the braking zone. You could see there, using once again his confidence on the brakes, but releasing the brake too soon and actually boxing himself in behind Zuhair when he didn't really want to. So that's going to be a little bit of a nuisance moment there for number 5 driver. Zuhair's got to see that. He's got to realise that Landry has a lot more confidence on the brakes, and what he can do there is he can park the car on the apex a bit more and say to Landry, well, if you're that confident, why don't you just come off the brakes and give me a tap on the backside? And that's going to play into Landry's mind. Zuhair can really start to stall himself out of these corners. He can drag the car beyond the apex, as I like to call it, where essentially he's so slow at the apex in and the driver behind has no option to get the power down. They have to wait, but they're going to get very close as they come out of turn number 13. Landry looking for the switch back there to go to the outside of 14. Zuhair shuts the door firmly in his face and says, no, I can see what you're trying to do there. You're trying to go around the outside of me, my friend. And as they come through in towards 15, right now Landry is throwing everything at this one, using all of his knowledge to be fair, and Zuhair is responding to it absolutely brilliantly and taking every page from the encyclopedia of defensive driving. But down the start finish straight here, and now Landry's got a monster run at this point. It's got to be side by side into turn 1. Landry's got a nose ahead. Can he beat Zuhair on the brakes into the apex? He does, but Zuhair's still there. 2 wide through turn 1, 2 wide through turn number 2. They get to turn number 3. Is it still 2 by 2? It is going to be initially. But as they come out of the corner, Landry has to tuck back in. Zuhair right now is proving to be absolutely obstinate here. A bit more oversteer coming out of turn number 4. Landry now looking down to the inside here. Zuhair tries to squeeze him, but he's got to give some space. Landry did make it. And we're onto the brakes. And now Zuhair takes too much curb. He takes way too much curb. The right hand side tyres struggle to grip up. It's a lock up on the front right brake. And it sends Zuhair straight on. As meanwhile, Julian Jones spins in reaction to that. And Jones goes around, but he doesn't lose the place. But he loses a lot of time. And with it, a little bit of face perhaps. He'll be a bit frustrated at that one. And well, as he brings himself back together, he falls back into the clutches of the lap down Glenn Bratton, who wants to try and make his way for an unlap himself here, but Julian Jones making an uncharacteristic error. He still holds on to fourth for the time being. Well, that's fourth on circuit, but I believe it's fifth on strategy because Matt Best has come into the pits, as had, well, in fact, Jaden Callaway has not come in, so it is Best right now who makes his way on around, and the Texas Speed Sim Racing driver at this point in time, and that at number 11, I think he's feeling as though it is coming together. He's got clear track in front of him. He hasn't got any cars for 8 seconds, so Best has given himself every opportunity, but how does Jaden Callaway respond? 8 minutes left. Callaway goes past us again here from the commentary booth. He cannot come into the pitch yet, he says. He wants to stay out there, and well, in doing so, it is definitely looking as though right now Jaden Callaway is extending that fuel tank, as meanwhile Best feels as though it's right to have come in early. Zuhair comes on in, an upside down face there, an unhappy face I should say, not an upside down face, goodness me, it's a frown I should say, that we'd like him to turn upside down and turn into a smile, but Zuhair comes on in. I think he realises with all the defensive driving he's put on, it's time to come into the pit, take that all-important splash and dash of fuel, and it will only be for a few seconds, no more than 7 seconds most likely. That's how long Matt Best spent in there, and the same for Tom Bryce and for Bill DaCosta, 6 seconds for the pair of them. And as we do see Best make his way on past, a couple more drivers he's passing now, as he comes up behind what is the car, I believe, of Bill DaCosta, who puts a lap on it very quickly. Zuhair's already leaving the pit lane. Where does he come out in the sequence? He comes out in 9th place, just behind Mark Senegal, and for Mark Senegal, that's the gravel trap. Oh, goodness me, poor Mark is not having a good day for Sunday GT Turtles. This Portimão Circuit and him are not getting along whatsoever, and I think he'll be hoping for a much better day at the office when he makes his way back closer to home soil in a week's time. But we take a look back quickly at how exactly Julian Jones got it wrong when he was on the charge in 5th place. And here is, ladies and gentlemen, your replay. So this was all in the aftermath of the Landry-Zahair battle. It was Landry up the inside as Zahair got it wrong. Jones made his way in towards turn number 5, went to get the power down, and just got a little bit too greedy with the throttle pedal there. The steering wheel was still crooked to the left, and as a result, as he got the throttle pedal down, the rear tyre span up. Remember, these Porsche Cup cars, they have no ABS, nor do they have any traction control. All the traction control is done by driver. It's all manual, and that's what went wrong for him. And then on lap number 16, only months ago, this was Mark Senegal having a difficult day. ×3, going in towards turn number 1, onto the brakes, brakes lock up, front right brake in particular, and just go straight into the gravel there. And indeed, it has not been a happy day for Mark Senegal for Sunday GT Turtles. But as we make our way back then, and indeed not long left in this race now, as all our drivers, if they haven't come into the pits, they will need to do so soon. We do have Jalen Callaway making his way out from the lead, and it's going to be Jason Landry, or will it be Matt Best? There is Best, and here comes Landry out the pit, so Best returns to 2nd place. For Jason Landry, well, he will have jumped Shahi Zahair, because Zahair is now coming across that timing line, so Landry will take 3rd, and I think Zahair may have taken a bit longer in the pit lanes. He has not saved fuel by comparison, given how hard he's worked, so that 4th place will now fall to Zahair, as meanwhile Landry will have secured the 3rd, at least for now, with 5 minutes left on the clock. And again, everything is possible before it's over. Julian Jones holds on to 5th, but is now 5 seconds away from Zahair after his spin, so that's cost him a bit of time. And then we do have Blake Phillips there in 6th place, the second of your AM drivers, as he takes a lot of apex curb there. That's a bit excessive from Blake at turn number 3. You don't normally see them leap over that curb, but he went for the leap. And well, fair play to him. And Daniel McConnell and Tom Bryce are a little bit further back. And in your 3rd place AM driver at the moment is Jermaine Warren, who's enjoying a very solid run here, and I think he would be hoping that he could close up to Blake Phillips, but all in all, I think he'll settle for the 3rd place, and he will take it, given the pace that he has been demonstrating thus far. And as Warren comes down in towards the hairpin, we look a bit further back to Mark Senegal, the man who right now has got Nick Bader only 1.5 seconds behind. Both of these drivers have had a difficult day here at Portimão, but who's going to have the more difficult day? That is going to be a question, because they are fighting for 4th in AM, 10th overall, and Bader is on a mission to try and close him down as we jump on board. And he comes out to turn number 5 in towards 6. Let's see if we can notice any considerable differences which are really enabling one to gain time on the other. Well, coming down through turn number 7, no real noticeable difference so far in these sweeping bends. It does seem as though Bader's a little bit more confident there at making a late apex, and actually does gain a 10th coming through turn number 8. I think Senegal right now may not be too comfortable with the way the Porsche is handling around here, and therefore he's trying to pinch his way into his apexes. We'll see it here at Portimão Bend. Bader a much smoother line. I think Senegal is a little bit hesitant to let the car run deep. I think he's worried that it overturns on the rear end. He may be a driver who prefers a car that has got the engine in front of the driver instead of behind. I can put my hand up and tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm one of those. Having driven a Porsche Cayman 718 around Thruxton Circuit in the United Kingdom, I only did 4 laps in it, and then I said to the instructor, I don't want to do it anymore. I want the engine in front of me, please, not behind me. It's sometimes a feeling which not everybody is comfortable with, to be fair. And, well, right now, Mark Senegal having to get comfortable with it as Nick Bader gets too close at Galp Corner. He gets close in the early entry phase, and therefore he has to back off. There's no real way to operate or go. But that's definitely putting a big sign out there, which is from Bader, Mark, I'm coming for you, and that place is going to be mine, whether you like it or not. About 3 minutes left on the clock. Our leaders already halfway around lap number 18, as both Senegal and Bader run wide. Bader more, well, Bader less so compared to Senegal. So Senegal now, he's probably got a slowdown for that, which he'll have to serve. He's probably bled it under braking in towards turn 3, and with a hesitance coming out of 4. He runs a bit wide out of 4 as well, so this is getting very choppy. It's getting very inconsistent for Senegal. Bader just needs to pick the right time to go for the move. He's going to go for it here under braking, and Senegal in the end calls him out on it and says, I'm going to match you for braking capacity. And well, in here, Mark Senegal may be struggling a little bit, but he's not struggling on finding his brake pedal and preventing the car locking up. That was a good bit of defensive driving there, and I think Bader was just thinking if he snaked it up the inside, he could very quickly steal the place away, but not quite so. But look how close he's getting on the exits. Those late apexes that Bader is so good at here compared to Senegal, who's so hesitant to take them. He's just not feeling comfortable in the car, and that is what's making the difference between them here. And again, Senegal taking another look as they come through that right-hander of 10 and 11, and it is all about riding the back of his rival as they head up towards turns 13 and 14. Well, here it's all about the late apex as well. And look at Bader, the body language of the what is the 276 compared to the 227 we're riding on board really is, I can go as late as I want at these corners and I will pick up the speed. But Senegal right now, he's doing the right thing, which is just park the car in the apex and say, okay, and what's next? What are you going to do? And that's the problem. Bader right now hasn't found the right timing to be able to get closer on the corner exit. Down that start-finish straight, and as they do, well, these cars heading upwards of 156 miles an hour as they break their way in towards turn 1. They're going so quick, the speedo can't quite keep up with them. But that is the pace they're demonstrating, no doubt about it. Mark Senegal right now trying to hold on it for just a little bit longer, because there'll be this lap plus one more as our leader right now. Well, could it be, as we do see there, Bader getting a bit too close and tapping Senegal in the rear. Our leader, Jaden Callaway, gradually peels his way on through, turns 14 and 15 to complete a 19th tour of the circuit, and then it's one more on the clock here, a 20th and final lap, and the ITD West driver on course here for what will be his first win of the season. And if he pulls this off, it will be an absolutely huge result, and it will definitely level the playing field right at the top of the standings before Road Atlanta in a week's time. But here he comes then in towards turn 1, only a lap between him and his first victory of the season. And for Matt Best, well, it may not be back-to-back victories, but it could be another podium with a second place. And Jason Landry, well, he's definitely going to build a reputation here, becoming Mr. Third Place if this continues. It will be now back-to-back third places, I do believe, after the way things played out. In fact, no, it was not a third place at Montreal. I do beg my pardon. It was a second place there, but he'll be at Mr. Podium at no win at this time if it all ends up this way. But we are in the final lap, ladies and gentlemen, and as we head on to that final lap, well, all the drivers right now not too far away from seeing that checker flag. And indeed, 20 laps have been accrued, but how will it all end? That is what we're waiting to find out. As Nick Bader and Mark Senegal, they're the closest on circuit fighting, and right now Mark's got one more lap to try and keep Bader behind as we jump on board again with the privateer in the 276. And he's picking all the wrong spots to get close. That seems to be the problem here, but that could be down to the way he's driving versus Senegal. And indeed, it might be his natural driving style which enables him to get close, and he doesn't know any other way. But he knows how to look one way than the other as he tries to go around the outside into turn number 1. That's not going to work, but he gets a much better exit there out of 1 into 2. But he just doesn't find a way in, and as a result has to wait here on the back end of turn number 3. Nick Bader close, and again just calls to wait at the apex there. There's no way up the inside into turn number 4, is there? Well, Senegal's going to go out really wide, and Bader's going to be too wide with him for a brief moment, but they are going to settle the differences there. Meanwhile, we have to leave them, ladies and gentlemen, because in an absolutely brilliantly controlled race, Jaden Callaway becomes our race winner of the day with his first win of the season in Pro and overall. Matt Best will come home to take the runner-up spot there for Texas Speed Sim Racing behind the ITD West driver, and it will be a further 12 seconds before you do get to Jason Landry, who will complete the overall Pro podium there with a solid effort. Great work from Jason Landry, and then we will have 9 seconds behind. Back-to-back victories for the AM class winner here. Shahi Zahir, 4th on the road, but winner in class. He'll get the 3 bonus points. The 209 driver looking unstoppable so far. 5th place, it just goes the way of Daniel McConnell ahead of Julian Jones right at the end there. I think there might have been a glitch on the timetable. We're not 100% certain on that, but they may have swapped places right at the close, with Blake Phillips, your runner-up in AM, in 7th place, ahead of Tom Price, who finishes in 8th, and then Jermaine Warren, he's celebrating because he's just picked up his first podium of the season as he does a 360 pirouette across the line. Keep out of the wall, good. So he's hit the wall slightly. The team won't be too pleased about that one, but it will count. And what about 4th place in AM? Well, Nick Bader, he's huffed and he's passed, but it's not enough because Mark Senegal here is going to hold on just the line by 2 attempts. Nick Bader will have to settle for 11th place, best to the rest as he passes him, but it's too late. And well, we then had Glenn Bratton and Bill Dacosta Fish a lap down each, 12th and 13th. And as our drivers cooling down, what a race, no doubt about it. Some brilliant fighting up and down the pack. And with Shahi Zahair, a back-to-back run of victories in the AM class. 2 so far out of 2. And he'll feel as though this AM class is very quickly heading in his direction. He may be setting himself up as an early favourite. If he makes it 3 out of 3 at Road Atlanta, I can only imagine how big his championship lead could be as we then do head to Long Beach for our first feature race. But that's in the future. Let's stay with the present and here for now. And as we do, ladies and gentlemen, well, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here they are for what has been our second round of the championship at the Autodromo International do Algarve in Portugal. And as we can see, after 35 minutes of racing in round number 2 of the MPRL Fall Into PCUP Championship for 2025, as brought to you on iRacing, Jaden Callaway, your winner overall and in pro by 5.7 seconds over the privateer of Matt Best. The Texas Speed Sim racing driver in the end not quite able to find a way to chisel away at Callaway's lead, albeit they were close in the early stages, but Callaway naturally started to progress and pull away. At Best had to settle for second. Jason Landry in a similar fashion, he was close on the back of Best in the early stages, but in the end had to let it go and find a way just to be content with third. And then we did see Shahi Zahair, your winner in the AM class, 4th overall. Couldn't quite hold on to third place as Landry put the pressure on. Zahair made a mistake under braking into turn 5, but the ITT West Senior Vice President's driver withstood the pressure of a true pro, there's no doubt about it, and in a way putting his own pro performance here today. Daniel McConnell took 5th as confirmed there, ahead of Julian Jones, so he did pass him at the timing line. Well done to McConnell, the second of the Texas Speed Sim Racing drivers, ahead of Julian Jones, with the 33 driver there having to settle for a 6th place. He'll be a bit gutted at that, but still plenty to move forward from. And then we did see Blake Phillips run up in the AM class there for the Pit Club Sim Racing. Solid effort from him, and spent quite a bit of a lonely race there until he had the company of Tom Bryce in the mid-stages. However, the ITT West Interns Pro Esports Division driver could not keep up. If anything, was at a risk of being caught up by Jermaine Warren, who was your 3rd and final finisher on the AM podium, 9th on the overall road. Mark Senegal had a brilliant fight with Nick Bader and managed to withstand the pressure for Sunday GT Turtles and took 10th, ahead of Bader was best rest in 11th. And we did have a lap down both Glenn Bratton and Billman DaCosta, with the Bear Pope Zero driver completing your finishing order. So 13 starters, 13 finishers, which is great to see, 11 on the lead lap. And that concludes our second round of the championship. And whereas at Montreal, it was an absolutely breathless experience, particularly at the very front between all of our pros, here today we have seen a much more traditional race with some great little back and forth fights, I should say, as I stumble over my words there, and back and forth fights between 2 drivers in a pair at a given time. But it really was the race today dictated by Jaden Callaway in pro, and for Shahi Zahair, 2 in a row in the AM class means that he's very quickly now starting to build confidence as your AM championship leader. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, the MPRL, well, we do recommend you check out our official Discord, invite link available on screen there. And indeed, if you want to be on the grid or just want to converse with the beating hearts of the community, we definitely recommend you do join the MPRL Discord. There's no better place to go if you want to be part of a casual and happy community of sim racers, particularly on the North American continent. But indeed, it doesn't matter where you hail from, anybody is welcome at the MPRL. If you don't want to join the Discord, perhaps you're a bit shy or prefer social media, you can of course follow us on Twitter, and that is at twitter.com/MOP Racing, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements and all things Middle of the Pack Racing League. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attentions now to round number 3, and next up we make our way back to North American continent, but in particular for a double header in the United States of America. First up, we head to the US state of Georgia for the Brazelton Town Circuit on the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. And with round number 3 taking place on Wednesday, the 15th of October 2025, come join us as if it were live on Monday, the 20th of October, where we'll see who is the true adrenaline junkie and who is going to fall off the ride before they get to the checkered flag. Until then, this has been the MPRL Fall Into PCUP Championship. We have been the Middle of the Pack Racing League, and I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit and a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.